I said something like that, like.
Okay, we're going to call this regular meeting of the Rutherford Board of Education to order. It's 7:30 p.m. I'm going to ask everyone to please stand if you can, face the flag for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll ask Mr. Kelly to please take roll.
Mrs. Ahmed,
Here.
Mr. Conti,
Present.
Mr. Healy,
Here.
Mrs. Jones,
Present.
Mrs. Librera,
Here.
Mr. Mazzone, Dr. Racine,
Here.
Mr. Sprayberry,
Here.
Dr. Olati.
Here.
Just a reminder, you're going to need to, you all are doing it now, but speak up into the microphone. Zoom is picking up your microphone, so.
The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meeting of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the Rutherford Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place posted on the bulletin board outside the Borough Clerk's office, mailed to the Herald, South Bergenite, and the Record newspapers, and filed with the Borough Clerk. Hard copies of the agenda are available in the meeting room, and the agenda is posted electronically on Friday before the meeting date on the district's website at www.rutherfordschools.org. This regular meeting of the Rutherford Board of Education will be held as scheduled in the cafeteria at Rutherford High School. In accordance with the Governor's Executive Order 152, limiting indoor gatherings to the lesser of 25 people or 25% of the room's capacity, however, this meeting will also be conducted utilizing video conferencing, as allowed by the Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-6, as amended by PL 2020 C11. As only a limited number of members of the public will be able to attend the meeting in person, members of the public are encouraged to participate by logging on to the following website at 7:30 p.m. as listed in the agenda. Log in RBOE meeting. A video recording of the video conference meetings will be made available on the district's website, www.rutherfordschools.org, subsequent to the meeting. The video link can be found by opening the Board of Education link and clicking on Public Meetings and then Videos. So in your packet, board members were given meeting minutes to approve, one of the regular meeting from August 24th, 2020, as well as the executive session, August 24th, 2020. Any board members have any comments, questions? Ms. Jones?
Yes, just on the regular meeting minutes, when the meeting was open to the public at 8:20, it shows that Mrs. Colleen Fenchick read a letter from the REA. There was another person that spoke, Mrs. Jennifer Augustover. She had asked the superintendent if there were any other school districts that were bringing back their first, second, and third grade students full-time, 5 days a week, and eating lunch in school. And you answered, you thought there were, and then I'm not sure what else transpired with that, but that was not in the minutes. Everything else is fine.
Good.
Okay.
Okay.
So
We'll amend,
that.
yep, we'll reflect that in the minutes.
Are there any other comments or questions? Okay, hearing none with that change, we'll ask that those be entered for our records. Okay, so we're going to start with the report of the superintendent.
Thank you. Every year, as per state regulations, I have to report to the board and obviously the public information regarding our graduating class from the previous year and this information is prescribed by the state, what they want me to report. So we had total of 185 students in last year's graduating class. Total number of students who graduated under a substitute competency test, which means instead of the state assessment, they chose one of the other options that are available, like SATs and military tests and things of that nature. 23 in ELA and 38 in math. There were 4 ELA students, language arts, and 6 in math, who graduated under a portfolio appeals process. There were 15 in language arts and 16 in math who graduated under an exemption of an alternative requirement as specified in their IEPs. There were 0 students from the 12th grade class denied graduation. There were 0 students denied graduation due to state testing requirements, and that is the report of data from last year. Okay. A couple of items, starting with today, the Pierpont incident. I want to commend the students and the faculty and the administration and the staff. The building was evacuated in under 7 minutes. They were at Lincoln School probably in about, well, faster than I could walk. They were there in about maybe 10 or 12 minutes. We had tremendous cooperation from the Rutherford Police Department and the Rutherford Fire Department. And Dr. Valechko and the staff at Lincoln School made sure that there was designated spots out and around the outside for students to be socially distanced, and brought some chairs out for faculty, and so it worked out very well. Thankfully the weather was a good day too, so we didn't have to worry about that. PSE&G responded within less than 10 minutes, had a team of about 20, 30 or more. There was a tremendous number of people. Isolated the problem, took care of it, and the students were back in school probably less than an hour and a half from the time they left. So these are things, I can remember Union School, I think it was 2005, when I think that, Ms. O'Keefe was actually interviewed on the news for a similar incident. Things like this happen. You don't want them to happen. You find out what the cause of it, and you seek corrective action to make sure they don't happen again. But grateful for the way the students and the faculty and the staff and the administration and the community worked, and the quick response from PSE&G. And the repair, PSE&G also repaired the damaged pipe today. As far as projects, I mentioned in my communication to you all that, I was very, very pleased that we were able to open with everything, if not totally done enough, where there was no interference with our day-to-day operation. Some of the buildings went right down to the wire, the kindergarten center being one, and a tremendous amount of work from the contractors and our own staff and our project management company to get everything up and running for when the students returned. Work continues, obviously, as we found out today, at all of the projects. And on October 5th, we had planned, remember back in, I think it was maybe April or May, to have the architects here to do a presentation, update of where we're at and a look ahead to where we're going. So with the suspension of live meetings, we tabled that, and they're going to be here, barring anything unforeseen happening, on October the 5th for a presentation. Our opening was excellent. We really had a very good opening for students. Lots of positive feedback that we've received, and a lot of happy, behind the masks, you can see a lot of happy faces of students and parents. The faculty as well, it was really a great opening for us. And every day things get a little smoother. We are looking at phase 2. Remember, we talked about phases. October 16th ending phase 1, October 19th starting phase 2. So probably September 24th or 25th, a message will go out to all of the parents, students who have chosen to be fully remote, and they will be asked to reply by October 1st if they are intending to stay fully remote or return to the building, so that we can then plan accordingly. and then we'll begin the second phase. In the meantime, we're also looking, as every day is a daily assessment, of any other things we have to do differently in phase 2. So maybe our custodial coverage, the buildings may stay open a little later. We may bring one custodian who's coming in earlier now in a little later if the building has to stay open later. We're going to look, remember we did set it up where we'd be able to fit all students back if we had to. I mean, it would be, it wouldn't be as spacious, for lack of a better word, than it is now, but we're also looking at how we could coordinate if we get a large number of students coming back. And, everything in the plan is reviewable as we move into the next phase based on what the local situation is and which is very good right now with, the rate of positivity and the rate of infection, what's going on with our students and staff. Okay, but the one given is we will be sending that message out to the fully remote. In a very simple form, it'll say if you're currently fully remote, are you going to send your child back? If it's yes, you continue. If it's no, you don't have to continue. In fact, you don't even have to submit the form, but we'd like them to, so we know for sure they got it. Back to school nights are going to be done virtually this year, and one of the things we're going to record, we thought, live Zooms and bringing the teachers in the building at night is not what we wanted to do. And also, when you get to middle school and high school, you really can't we can't expect 7 or 8 different classrooms, the parent to be zooming in at different times to all of those. So every teacher is going to be recording, a message about their class. The high school, middle school level would probably be more in the line of 8 to 10 minutes discussion, like it would be if if a parent was stopping in classes. In the elementary, maybe a slightly longer one. Elementary parents like to see the classroom, so we're going to ask the teachers to make sure they've recorded in their classroom so they can see the classroom. And the beauty of this would be, like some of the other things we're learning, we're going to post it, somewhere around September 28th to September 30th, depending on the building. And once it's up there, it's going to be up there. So a parent, parent doesn't have to worry about a conflict the night of back to school night. Or if they have students in, multiple buildings, they have to worry about 3 or 4 back, they can look at it at their leisure. We also are going to leave it up so that those students who come back in phase 2, after the posting, right, those parents and students could go and take a look at back to school night to get the introduction to their teacher and to the program. So, and for that matter, we could leave it up even into phase 3 if that's the case. So that will be happening the week of September, somewhere around September 28th. Again, it depends a little bit on the filming and the editing of the film. And it's going to be something where it'll be like a Google sheet where it'll say, Mr. Met, TV production 1, TV production 2, photography 1, and you'd click on the link that your child was in the class and it'd take you to that video. One of the things I want to mention, to share with you, we had a meeting that was scheduled this morning with all the administrators, and then we bumped that to this afternoon because of the unexpected activity this morning. And, we've been focusing, rightly so much on reopening and PPE and, everything connected. We had a good discussion today about reminding us all of what the reason why we work so hard to reopen the building, right, is to educate the children, students, academically, socially, emotionally. So, we really want to start to shift the focus in our meetings so they're not being an hour and 15 minutes spent on talking about a mask. We're going to review all that, make sure everything's still in line, but let's start digging into the academics. Let's start, we're open for business, so let's make sure our business is running in the direction it should be running in. Part of that business is making sure we keep everybody safe and healthy, right? But part of it, the big part of it is how we're educating the kids. So one example, and not just the ones in the brick and mortar of the building. That's our goal, right? To get everybody back. But the students who are in the hybrid days, the students who are fully remote, we've been struggling a little bit with how the bandwidth might be impacted if everybody's zooming in at once, right? Not so much them zooming in, but the teacher zooming out, right? So we've been trying to, do like a rationing, on this day, these classes do it. Tomorrow, we're going to have a free Tuesday, and we're asking everybody to live stream, because we're not going to really know. Now, the worst thing that happens is we get knocked offline, but we want to see if we can, increase the amount of live streaming we're doing without hurting the bandwidth. And the only way to really do that is not to guess how much is going to be used, but let's just do it. So we're doing it tomorrow. So, we've been working every day on trying to get the academics, where they should be, and to make sure that we're serving the needs of the students. And last thing I'll mention, you should have all gotten a copy of this. This is the magazine that New Jersey School Boards sends out. I got mine today. And in the centerfold right here is Brian Ursulisi reading to the kids. Our communications folks sent that into school boards. And they did a pictorial feature on seeds from around the state for the lockdown last spring. And we're happy to see that in there representing the district. Okay. During the course, there's a couple of things I'll comment on, a couple of resolutions when we get there, but for now, that's it. Oh, and one last thing. Student rep, we will have one this year, but the student council elections that usually happen in May did not happen yet, so once they occur, whenever that's going to happen, we'll have a student rep. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hurley. Any questions from board members? Ms. LeBrer?
Has the end date of Phase 2 been identified yet, or is that something that's
Yeah, it
being
is. I
worked
believe, I think it's November 26th. That's what stands out in my mind, but it's right around
Okay.
then. I think it's right after the Thanksgiving weekend, if I'm not mistaken. And then we have actually an end for Phase 3, too, sometime in January, and then we're going to see how many phases we're going through going forward,
Right.
Okay.
Well, I just want to say that, I know it's been said before, but certainly on behalf of everyone I have spoken to in the community, my family, just so incredibly impressed with the organization and the work that has come from the school team to have a successful opening. And I know every day the team is working to continue to figure out how to best maximize the opportunity, and really appreciate everybody's effort. I know it was a long haul to get here, and it'll continue to be a long haul, but I'm very proud of the district and what's gone on in the last few weeks.
Well, on behalf of everybody that worked on it, I thank you. And we have been receiving many, many positive comments and emails, and it's nice even to walk around the street and folks I don't recognize, but they come up and say positive things. And but again, it's every day we're making sure that we're keeping it going in the right direction. But a lot of people worked real hard and did it so that we could, like I said earlier, we want to provide the students with the best academic experience and social and emotional we can. So I appreciate your comments.
Any other comments? Okay, hearing none, we're going to move on to the report of the president. So I wanted to start by echoing Ms. Librera's thank you to Mr. Hurley and his team. I'm really proud to live in a town and in a district where the superintendent and your team worked to evaluate every detail of the reopening plans to determine that we could reopen in the hybrid fashion that we did. And, I think in the heightened state that we're living in right now during this pandemic, transparency and communication is key. And I found there to be a tremendous amount of transparency and communication about things that are going on. And want to thank you also for answering all of our questions, because I know that, as board members, our job is to make sure that we're thinking strategically and, representing the town, and there are more than a typical amount of questions that come up, so we really do appreciate your answering all of our questions. Even on the weekends, he answers questions. So, you mentioned, health and safety, minimizing risk, educational integrity, academic, social emotional learning. Those are the keys, and the way we get there is through ongoing assessment and adaptability, and you talked about that, so really do value and appreciate that, and don't take it for granted. I wanted to also just say I'm really pleased with the progress on the facilities projects, that everything is on time or ahead of schedule, and thank you to Mr. Hurley and Mr. Kelly for your oversight and continued hard work on that, and thank you to the Building and Grounds Committee and everyone else who's been making sure to ask the questions so that we can assure that everything's happening the way we want it to, within scope, time, and on budget. You'll see in the packet that there were board goals that are up for approval this evening, and so, Mr. Hurley, myself, Mr. Mazzone, we talked about these goals, and they shouldn't be a surprise, to anyone. One of them has to do with our making sure facilities referendum projects are completed on time, within scope and budget. Two of them are related to successful contract negotiations. So this year we have the Rutherford Administrators Association and the Rutherford Supervisors Association contracts to negotiate. So I think it's very appropriate that negotiating those successfully should be a goal of ours as a board. For those who are new to the board, typically there are either 3 or 4 board members who represent the board to have negotiations with those associations. So those will be getting underway in the coming weeks as well. So look forward to those conversations. Then the final goal was really about the characteristics of board excellence and addressing gaps and having objectives to improve board performance. I think I talked about this when I began as president, as my perfectionistic way about me, but I think that a good way to go about this will be through the Strategic Planning Committee to talk a little bit about really the characteristics of board excellence and being able to, at each meeting, address any areas that might be further areas for development for the board. And also hearing from you about what areas you would like in terms of further development. And so development of a board, I look at it in 2 ways. There's how are we all moving forward together as a board to be in sync with common understandings, but then also what do we each individually need? Because we all need different things depending on our years on the board, on our background and experience. So we'll be looking at that as well. So that's on the docket to approve this evening. And then finally, just a reminder that typically there are events that board members attend during the year, and obviously that's going to look different than usual. So a lot of things are on hold right now, but just be on the lookout, whether it's, the PTA meetings if you're a board liaison or otherwise, so that we can make sure that we're representing the board at all these meetings, which is an important thing to do. So that's it for my comments. Any questions? Comments? Okay, hearing none. Then at 7:53 p.m., we're going to open the meeting to the public for agenda-related items. We'll start with the audience first and then go to Zoom. Any questions from the audience? No? Okay, hearing none, we'll go over to Zoom to see if there are any questions. If there are, you can unmute yourself and start by giving us your name and your address. Okay, hearing no comments, then at 7:53 p.m. we're going to close the meeting to the public. And now we're going to move on to new business where action will be taken. And we're going to start off with personnel. Ask Mrs. Ahmed to take us through that.
I can start off with the thing. Okay, we're good. All right. With the recommendation of the superintendent, I'm going to ask the board today to think about moving the following motions. 1, Polina Acurol, teacher assistant at kindergarten, for resignation. 2 and 3 are also resignations of teacher assistants. 1 at Pierpont. Number 2 is Sandra Gonzalez. 3, Carol Orgenbachbaum, lunch monitor, a resignation. 4, resignation of Cheryl Lorenzo as a lunch monitor at Pierpont School. And 5, Matthew Weinbrack, resignation of Matthew, lunch monitor at Washington School also. Number 6 is payback sick days for the retiree as per agreement for Maria Considine. 7, Kayan Ostat, to approve as a long-term substitute social studies teacher. 8, Catherine Driscoll, to approve her as a long-term substitute language arts teacher. 9, Jessica Perone, long-term substitute physical education teacher at Union. 10, Jody Wenzelberg, to approve her as a part-time teacher assistant at Pierpont School. 11, Jacqueline Roman, also at Pierpont School, part-time teacher assistant. 12, Melissa Denner, to rescind her as a part-time teacher assistant at Union School. And then be it resolved for number 13, to approve her as, it's a jump in, what was it now? I think it was, the hours were added on for her. 14, hall monitors, to increase the hours from 4 to 4.5 hours per day for Catherine Arnold and Chris Ann Ronco. 15, certify the quantitative merit criteria has been satisfied by the business administrator. And also the education to approve the payment of merit bonus goals in the amount of $4,178. 16, business administrator's merit bowl. Quantitative merit criteria has been satisfied by the business administrator. So approve the payment of merit bond goals in the amount of $5,515. 17, salary level changes, and that really is due to additional credits as listed. 18, sixth class, to approve or rescind the 500 stipend for a full year course, 250 stipend for half year course for the following grade 7 to 12 teachers who have been assigned the sixth class for the 2021 school year. Approve Anna Kokaro for Union and rescind Margaret McFadden Dottie. 19, Bulldog Care Accountant before and after, to approve Joanne Hughes at the hourly rate of $20 for up to 10 hours per week. Counselor number 20, Counselor of Before and After Care Programs for the district school year at the hourly rate of $19 for up to 20 hours per week. Counselor Before and After Programs, rescind Sarah Kuprick as a Counselor Before and After Programs for the district school year at the hourly $19,020 hours. 22, Site Director of Before and After Programs, to rescind Jessica Johnson. 23, Site Director of Before and After Program, approve Linda Mermini as Director and Before and After Programs for the district, $24 for 29.5 hours per week. 24, Substitute Bulldog Care Counselor, Elba Cruz, to be effective in September. 25, Substitute Bulldog Care Helping Hand for Tony Ann DeSalvo, Substitute Bulldog Care Helping Hand for the school year, $15 for up to 15 hours per week. Paula Rizzoli, to provide her for Gillingham instruction for up to 4 hours per week at the hourly rate of $35 for the school year. 27, Lynn Herbert, to approve her as for 5 days during the summer months as a clerical assistant at Washington School. 28, Kelly Santana, to approve a change in the start date of her for disability leave from September 8th to September 2nd. And 29, FFCRA leaves, to approve of the following employee leaves as a provision of the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, FFCRA. And I think they're listed. I don't think we should have to read them. And 30, intern student teachers, for Darcy Rodriguez, Montclair State University Counseling Program, and Michael Barunsky from William Patterson University. So with the board's vote, I would like to present those motions for approval.
All right, Ms. Hurley, anything you want to comment on?
Number 11, Jacqueline Roman, should be a part-time teacher assistant at Union School. So if we could amend that for the agenda in the minutes.
Okay. Part-time teacher assistant.
That's all I have.
That's all you have? Okay. Number 19, the Bulldog Care Accountant, before and after care, is that any sort of structural change, or is that?
No, that was in the plan. To take, we're getting, whatever the number of enrollees are, monthly checks coming in and bills going out, so someone has to take care of that. Because the tuition is paid on a monthly basis.
Any comments or questions from board members? Hearing none, Ms. Ahmed, do you want to move those?
If I may first,
Oh.
we have a comment from the public that they can't hear, so if you can speak up, please.
Okay. With the board's permission, I'd like to move the following resignations, retirements, salary adjustments, reassignments, appointments, etc., in accordance with law for our vote.
Okay, do we have a second? Mr. Healy. Any last comments or questions? Hearing none, I'll ask Mr. Kelly to please take roll.
Mrs. Ahmed,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Healy,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mrs. Librera,
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone,
Yes.
Dr. Racine,
Yes.
Mr. Sprayberry,
Yes.
Dr. Oladi.
Yes.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, we have curriculum and instruction. Mrs. Jones, if you'd take us through it.
There are 6 resolutions under curriculum and instruction this evening that are put forward at the recommendation of the superintendent. Number 1, nursing services plan for this school year. Number 2, out-of-district placements, which now total $652,294.04. 3, school improvement panel for Union School is to rescind Asunta Smith teacher and approve Nadia Alvarado and Colleen Fenchick. 4 is board goals, and you just heard Dr. Alati go through them, so I won't read them, but there are 4 important goals. 5, school goals, we all have a list of that in our packet. And 6, code of conduct, which is also, each school presents one. They're pretty self-explanatory. I think Dr. Alati went over our goals, so if there's nothing else, no other questions, I put forth the 6 resolutions under curriculum and instruction.
All right, any comments or questions? Mr. Hurley, any?
No, we're good. Unless anyone has any questions, we're good.
My only question was, I guess, nothing is changing for the nursing services plan,
No,
right?
nursing services plan is simply a list of all the statutory requirements,
Okay,
and then we check that we are hitting them. And we have to do that annually, and the board approves it annually.
okay. Okay, Mrs. Jones, you want to move those?
I move resolutions 1 through 6 under curriculum and instruction.
All right, we have a second. All right, Ms. Librera, any last comments or questions? Hearing none, I'll ask Mr. Kelly to please take roll.
Mrs. Ahmed,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Healy,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mrs. Librera,
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone,
Yes.
Dr. Racine,
Yes.
Mr. Sprayberry,
Yes.
Dr. Oladi.
Yes.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, we have finance. Dr. Racine.
All right, finance, we have 6 motions tonight. Number 1 is the approval of bills. Numbers 2 and 3 are the July treasurer's report and budget transfers. 4 and 5 are the same, but for August. Number 6 is the pass-through for non-public nursing through the Board of Health into other non-public schools. That's it.
Okay. Questions or comments? Mr. Hurley, anything?
No, I think we're good.
Okay, hearing none, Dr. Racine, you want to move this?
I'd like to move finance 1 through 6.
All right, do we have a second? Mr. Mazzone, any last comments? Hearing none, I'll ask Mr. Kelly to please take roll.
Mrs. Ahmed,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Healy,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mrs. Librera,
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone,
Yes.
Dr. Racine,
Yes.
Mr. Sprayberry,
Yes.
Dr. Oladi.
Yes.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
Okay, next we have policy. Ms. Librera.
Tonight, there are 15 new and revised policy regulations that I am putting forward for second reading. These are the same policies that we discussed at the last meeting. So I'd like to go ahead and move those.
Okay. Any comments or questions from board members? Hearing none, do we have a second? Mr. Sprayberry. Mr. Kelly, please take roll.
Mrs. Ahmed?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Lebrera?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone?
Yes.
Dr. Racine?
Yes.
Mr. Sprayberry?
Yes.
Dr. Oladi?
Yes.
Motion carried, thank you.
Okay, next we have buildings and grounds. Mr. Healy.
Yes, we did not have a Buildings and Grounds meeting since our last board meeting. Tonight, there are two resolutions being put forth for review and approval as recommended. And number one is a change order, or change orders for 3 renovation projects as listed. And number two is a change order, which actually has 2 parts regarding McCabe Environmental Services, and then the part 2 is for monitoring and testing services for those environmental services as listed for the renovation school sites. So we're putting these two, putting them forward for approval for tonight.
Okay, any comments from Mr. Hurley or Mr. Kelly?
Mr. Kelly, I don't think, you have any, Mr. Kelly?
No, I don't think so. The change orders in motion number 1 are all within the allowance that's been provided for each project, so that's, the cost of that has already been factored in. The change orders for McCabe Environmental, those are just additional procedures that needed to be performed in order to make sure that we were handling the abatement, as required by law. So,
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Any comments from board members? No, hearing none. Mr. Healy, you want to move those?
Yes, we'd like to move these 2 resolutions.
All right, do we have a second? Ms. Lebrera? Any last comments? Hearing none, I'll ask Mr. Kelly to please take roll.
Mrs. Ahmed?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Lebrera?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone?
Yes.
Dr. Racine?
Yes.
Mr. Sprayberry?
Yes.
Dr. Oladi?
Yes.
Motion's carried, thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, we'll go to old business. Does anyone have any old business? Mrs. Jones?
Just a reminder, the New Jersey School Boards Convention, which is normally held the last week of October, obviously nobody's going to Atlantic City, but it is virtual, so it is an opportunity for you to Zoom in. There's lots of good meetings that you could do. They're on all the time, and I'm sure some of them will be recorded where you might want to do that. If you need to do it, there is a fee that we have to do ahead of time, but it might be worth your while this year, and you don't have to travel, and there's none of the other stuff that's usually involved. But it's always very good, and there's lots of things that we can learn.
Thank you. Ms. Jones, do you happen to know what the date is of that offhand?
The school board convention, I believe.
I think it's October 25 and 6 and 7.
Yeah.
Does that seem right? I think that's it, right? Maybe not.
I think it's the 20th, 21, and
Oh, you're right,
22.
20, yeah, because
It's the week before Halloween.
yeah, I think it is. I think
Okay.
it-
Do we need prior approval, or can we just go and register? Can we just register for it?
Well, you just need to tell Mr.
You
Kelly.
have to go through Mr. Kelly.
Yeah, I think we can just register, because there's no travel involved this year, so you just have to let me know if you're interested in it.
They usually want it through you, though.
Right, but we don't have to get board approval because they're not over the amount.
Right.
Statutory
So just
amount.
tell Mr. Kelly, and he'll register us. I'm going to do it.
Okay,
It's
thank you.
Good.
As long as it's under $150.
Well, it's more than
No.
that.
No, it's more than that. Is it
There's no
more?
travel involved. It's the travel that triggers the board motion.
Okay,
so-
all right, so you're good. But we have a board meeting on October 5th anyway, even if we had to approve anything.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we're good. So just reach out to Mr. Kelly.
So this is the year to attend.
No excuses, no excuses.
No excuse. Any other old business?
I just want to mention that tentatively, we could look maybe at, we had committee meetings on September 28th. I think maybe that could be a night that if SPC wanted to meet, whether in person or virtually, we could decide. And then the October 19th, I think, there was committee meetings. We would probably looking at building and grounds and finance in terms of separately, as you know, to one of those referendum facilities update type meetings. The other committees I don't see a need for in the short term. So, you know, that could change, but less tentatively, and when we get closer to the dates, I'll email everybody.
Okay. Any other old business? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to legislative updates. Mr. Hurley or Mr. Conti, do you have any updates?
No, nothing that hasn't been out and about, and a lot of things being proposed and so on, but we'll see where it all goes.
Okay, then at 8:11 PM, I'm going to open the meeting to the public for any agenda item related or not related to the board agenda.
Hello, James Bogosian, 155 Home Ave. As a parent of 3 children, I never thought that the day before school opening would be the happiest day in my family's household. However, 2020, everything's changed. So I just wanted to thank everyone who was involved in all of the planning, getting this set up, all the teachers who are back in their rooms, teaching our kids. The tenor of our household has changed dramatically with the kids getting back in the building. They are so happy, and I just wanted to thank everyone for all their hard work.
That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and there, it looks like there's no one. Oh, yeah, please.
Tim Lorfink, 175 Woodward Avenue. I know it was tough coming up with the plan here. I just was curious, has anybody sat in on any of the remote classes? My daughter is remote. I thought it was going to be like the end of last year, where a teacher would be dedicated to the remote students. It hasn't worked out too well so far for the remote, in my case. This past week, she had 30 minutes of remote and 20 minutes in the one class, and I don't blame the teacher. I think it's very difficult for the teacher to have kids in the class that she's trying to teach, plus has kids up on remote. The 20 minutes was sent, oh, can you see? Oh no, it's blurry. Can you hear me? 20 minutes of that, there was no teaching going on. And again, I know it was tough to come up with a plan, but I'm not sure it's working with a teacher in the classroom and also trying to do remote. I'm a little concerned. So, maybe you guys could sit in on a remote class and see what it's like, you know, so.
Well, the board can't sit in on a class, but the supervisors and the administrators do sit in on them, and we are going to continue to monitor it. As I said at the beginning of the meeting in my report, we're looking every day. We're going to tomorrow try a way to get more live streaming, looking at bandwidth. You're right, it is a challenge. The teachers have to teach the students in front of them, the students who were in front of them yesterday are not in front of them today, and the students who are never in front of them. But again, the plan that we worked on and submitted, and the plan that was approved, is a combination of synchronous and asynchronous, which means a combination of live and not live. So where there might be a 30 or 40 minute live Zoom in, there is the expectation of 3.5 hours or 3 hours more of work. It is not a perfect situation. We're working our best to make it better. School is, person to person. There's a lot more than just having, especially young children, try to look at a screen by themselves in isolation for long periods of time. We factored in the elementary grades, especially the 1 to 3, research done on a level higher than our level to indicate that you wanted to slowly increase the amount of time that a 6 or 7 or 8-year-old could spend in front of a screen. There's a reality, and it's a reality of staffing, and budgets, and even if we had the money to go out and hire teachers, where do you find these teachers right now? Because there really is a shortage of them. So I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying. And like I said, it's a constant daily evolution to try to make it better.
I also think another thing they need to look at is all the teachers, there's no consistency. Who puts an assignment out at a certain time, who puts it out in the morning. We did an assignment that said due tomorrow, then we were told, oh, that's the classwork for tomorrow, it wasn't supposed to be done. There's maybe a little more coordination too.
Well, I'd also say this, I said this to another parent, if your daughter or son were in school, in the classroom, and you felt that directions weren't clear, or work was too hard, or work was too easy, or what would be the first thing you would do?
Well, I try to contact the teacher.
Okay, well,
I think they're already overwhelmed a little
Well,
bit.
no, I think you have to, no, the teacher's job and the teacher's responsibility is to educate your child. So I think the first thing you ought to do is say to the teacher, can you put this out at a different time, or when was this due, or this was unclear? Because the fact that the teacher, and not in a confrontational way or an argumentative way, you're right, the teachers are overwhelmed. We're asking them to do things they never had to do before, and if someone comes up with a question that they can explain to you why it's done, maybe you understand it better, or maybe they say, hey, I didn't think about that. So I don't think, school has changed, but it really shouldn't have changed. And if there's a concern, the person to talk to first should be the teacher, because his or her job is still to educate your child. And then you see where it goes from there. And then you go, along, like they say, up the ladder if you need to. But that would be my advice. We're in, I can't even keep track of the days now. The kids have been back in school 5 days, but some kids have been back in school 5 days. Some have been 2 days, and some have been online. There's a whole, even in a normal year, those first few days, there's a lot of bumps in the road. So,
I know, but I felt we almost had a practice run.
Well, no, I'm talking about, I taught for 23 years before I went to administration, and every year, the opening of school, there were bumps in the road. So, it's a whole new year. We don't, you don't pick up in September what you did in June. There's always a growth. The beginning of the year, it's starting to rise. So that's a reality too. So I think we need patience. I think we need communication. And if we could work on that together, I'll be honest with you, it's not going to be perfect,
Yep.
but it could be better.
All right.
Okay?
Just want to bring up, but I understand it was a tough.
No, I appreciate your comment. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So I want to thank everyone who spoke, and I do want to thank you for your comments. And I do think, just to reiterate what Mr. Hurley said, I do think that, if there's any question or comment that, any of the Rutherford District families have, first thing definitely to do is talk to the teacher, talk to the principal. Do appreciate that you brought this up, and, we're all taking note, and we all realize that as we continue to look forward, monitoring how things are going is something that I know Mr. Hurley and the principals will be doing, and I know as a board, we care deeply about the satisfaction of the families, and we recognize the challenges, so do appreciate everything that you're bringing up this evening. I don't think we have anyone else here to make comments, so hearing none, at 8:19 p.m., we're going to close the meeting to the public, and I don't believe we have a need for an executive session. Does that bring us to adjournment?
It does.
This is a record. So,
Well, a record in recent time, anyway, right?
right, at least in my time as president. Okay, so at 8:19 p.m., we're going to entertain a notion to adjourn the meeting. All right, Mr. Sprayberry, seconded by Dr. Racine. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, then we are adjourned.
Thank you.